Our HOA president, Patricia, had locked my deaf child inside, stole away her hearing aids, and left her to suffer in the blazing sun, all because Emma's boisterous singing interfered with neighborhood rules. Before seeing full video, comment below. From where you're watching, also like and subscribe for more stories. I found my little Emma inside a metal cage burning under hot sun, her little hands stretched through bars, her tear-streaked face flushed with crying. In heat, her special hearing aids had been removed and thrown on the floor. At the time, I wanted to kill Patricia Montgomery. "Mommy, please help her," wept the awful woman. Told me I was too noisy. She put me in the timeout cage. My 5-year-old child was born deaf. Her cochlear implants enabled her to hear the world, but occasionally she couldn't help but make a lot of noise. When she was excited today, that excitement had made her a target. It all started this morning. Emma was playing with her new toy piano in our backyard, laughing and singing, creating little songs like children do. I was indoors making lunch when I heard a loud bang at our front door. There stood Patricia Montgomery, the president of our homeowner association, her face taut with anger. "Your daughter is making that disgusting noise again," she said, not even greeting me. "This is the third time this week we have noise policies in this community." I took a deep breath. We had moved to Sunshine Acres only 2 months ago. I thought it would be a good place to raise Emma after her father died last year. The school that was nearby had an excellent program for deaf children. But from the very first day, Patricia had made our life a nightmare. "She's just playing, Patricia. Children make noise." She can't always explain how loud she is because of her hearing condition. Patricia's eyes narrowed. "Disability isn't an excuse to disrupt the tranquility. My husband is trying to work from home. Your daughter's screaming is disrupting his critical calls." I could feel my face flush. "She's not screaming, she's singing." "Well, it does sound like a dying cat either. Keep it down or risk fines." She shoved a sheet of paper in my hand. "This is your formal notice." I closed the door and leaned against it, trying not to cry. Emma didn't have many joys in her life. The piano was one of them. Her therapist said music helped her feel the vibrations she couldn't fully hear. My phone rang. Was my boss. There was an emergency at work, a client crisis that needed my immediate attention. I worked from home as a customer service manager, and this client was our biggest account. I'd be right on the call. I had promised. I looked in on Emma, who was still happily playing outside in our fenced backyard. The crisis would only last an hour. At most, Emma was secure in our locked yard. I could see her from my office window, or so I thought 20 minutes into my emergency call. I looked out and saw that Emma was no longer at the piano. I scanned the yard, but couldn't see her. My heart leapt, but I told myself she was probably just joking behind the big oak tree where she loved collecting acorns. The call went on for another 40 minutes when it finally stopped. I rushed to check on how Emma was. The backyard was empty. Her piano didn't move. Her favorite stuffed bunny was left alone on the grass. "Emma!" I shouted, my voice growing more anxious. "Emma!" A faint cry returned to me from behind our garden shed. What I learned there will haunt me for the rest of my life. My daughter was confined in a large metal dog cage. The sun pounded directly onto the cage with no protection. Her face was red as a beet, her hair dripping sweat. Her cochlear implants sat on the ground outside the cage, shutting her off from the world in a world of frightening silence. A bicycle lock closed the door. "Oh my God, Emma!" I knelt beside the cage. I attempted to open the lock, but it was too tight. I ran out to the garage for tools, my hands shaking so much I could barely grip the bolt cutters when I was finally able to free her. Emma embraced me, her shaking little body vibrating between tears. She told us what occurred. The angry woman from next door came into our yard. She said my music was disgusting noise. She said deaf people shouldn't try to sing. She took my ears away and put me in the cage for a timeout. My blood turned to ice, then fire. I took Emma inside, gave her water, and examined her for injuries. Her skin was hot to the touch. She was dehydrated and terrified, with Emma safely inside. I marched next door and pounded on Patricia's door. Her husband opened it, looking confused. "Where is she?" I demanded. "Who?" He asked. "Your wife." "The woman who recently placed my disabled daughter in a dog kennel and left her baking under the sun." His face whitened. "What are you talking about?" Before I could answer, Patricia stood behind him. When she recognized me, something flickered in her eyes. Not shame, not guilt, exasperation. Your daughter was disturbing the entire neighborhood, she said icily. I just gave her a timeout because clearly you don't correct her. Her husband turned to gaze at her in horror. Patricia, what did you do? Don't look at me like that. Daniel, that little girl has been a nuisance since they've lived here, constantly making those strange noises, that ridiculous justification of singing. Someone should have taught her. There are consequences. I pulled out my phone. The police are on their way, and you should know our security camera captured everything. The color drained from Patricia's face. You're lying, there isn't any camera. I showed her my phone screen, the app displaying clear video of her entering our yard, approaching Emma Cruey, removing her cochlear implants, despite my daughter's horrified protests, shoving her into the cage and closing it, then sauntering away with a satisfied smile. The police arrived minutes later. They took one glance at Emma's condition and the video evidence, and arrested Patricia immediately as they led her to the police car handcuffed. She kept yelling she was violating noise ordinances. I was just following the rules of the hospital. The doctor told me Emma was in a state of heat exhaustion and dehydration. She might have died if she'd been outside much longer. He spoke to me gently. The heat in that metal box had to have been terrible. Those words cracked something open in me. I held on to Emma's hand as she finally settled into sleep in the hospital bed, her tiny body hooked up to 4 fluids. And I wept not so much for what had happened, but for how close I'd come to losing her. I had tried to be a good neighbor. I had tried to be considerate of neighborhood laws, and my daughter had nearly paid the ultimate price. News of what happened, spread throughout our neighborhood like fire by evening families I'd barely known were in the hospital, with toys for Emma, food for me, and support I never expected. We're so sorry, said an old man who introduced himself as Mr. Chin from across the street. Patricia has bullied all of us for years, but this is monstrous. She threatened to fine me when my husband's oxygen machine was too noisy at night, said a woman named Maria, tears in her eyes. He was dying of lung cancer, and she complained about his breathing equipment. More stories emerged. Patricia had terrorized the neighborhood for years, finding a family whose autistic son needed a special swing in their garden, threatening an old lady who placed unauthorized flowers to attract butterflies for her grandchildren, even trying to ban a veteran from flying the American flag since it was too large. Nobody had risen to her level until today. Daniel, Patricia's husband, came to the hospital the next day. He looked devastated. I had no idea she was capable of such. He said, "We've been married 15 years, but I never really knew her. I served her with the divorce papers. I'm selling the house. You'll never see either of us again." He gave me an envelope. It's not enough, but it should pay for Emma's medical treatments and therapy. When Emma was discharged from the hospital, we came home to discover our neighbors had remade our yard. The area where the cage had stood was now a beautiful music garden with wind chimes, a small waterproof keyboard, and vibrating sound pads that Emma could feel with her own feet. A new sturdy fence had been erected with a state-of-the-art security system. The HOA board met in emergency session and voted Patricia out as president. In her place, they put in Maria, who led the way in altering things to make disabled individuals more comfortable. But Patricia's trauma wasn't easily healed. She would not play independent in the backyard. She had flashbacks where she was jailed, couldn't hear anyone saving her. She became afraid of her cochlear implants, associating them with Patricia's cruelty. We went into therapy. Emma's therapist specialized in treating trauma in deaf children. She helped Emma process what happened using art and play slowly. My daughter recovered. The music that had been her love became her medicine again. 3 months after the incident, Patricia's lawyer called me about a plea bargain. She would plead guilty to reduce fees if I pleaded to a smaller sentence. No, I said firmly. She has to pay for what she did to my daughter. The district attorney was completely on my side. What she did was not only cruel, she explained to me, it was a hate crime against a child with a disability. We're seeking the maximum penalty. The trial took place 6 months after that terrible day. Emma was strong by then, though still recuperating. I had to redo and relive every terrifying second when they aired the security tape during testimony in court. Everyone gasped. One of the jurors, a mother of young children, openly wept. Patricia's alibi was a joke. She explained that she had taken Emma wandering unattended and had briefly held her in custody for her own safety. The video eradicated the lie completely. The jury was no more than 90 minutes deliberating. She was guilty on all three charges: false imprisonment, child endangerment, and committing a hate crime against a disabled person at the sentencing. Hearing the judge was outraged, Mrs. Montgomery. You put a deaf child in a cage, took away her hearing, and left her to suffer in the heat because you resented the sound of her happiness. He said, your actions show a complete lack of humanity. He sentenced her to 7 years in prison, mandatory counseling, and a permanent restraining order prohibiting her from ever reaching out to us or serving in an office within a community in any way once again. As they took Patricia away, my eyes caught hers for a moment, and for the first time I saw fear in hers. She finally experienced what it's like to be helpless, to be at the mercy of someone. A year later, Emma is 6 years old. She still remains frightened in part, but she's singing again. The neighborhood has evolved. The once-alike homes now speak of personality. Wheelchair ramps were needed, gardens that reflect their owner's taste. Children's toys and basketball hoops and wind chimes. Every house has a sign in their window with the American Sign Language welcome symbol. Over the past weekend, we hosted the inaugural Sunshine Acres Inclusion Festival. In the town park, families from every part of the city came to enjoy accessible games, a silent disco for deaf and hearing kids, and educational booths on different disabilities. Emma was the main attraction, performing a song that she had written herself on her new keyboard. Mariah introduced me to a plaque on behalf of the neighborhood for teaching us that true community isn't about rules, it read. It's about making sure everyone belongs. Seeing Emma playing with her new friends, both deaf and hearing children learning to communicate with one another, I understood something significant. Patricia had tried to silence my daughter's voice. She had failed. Emma was singing louder than ever, and in her song she brought together a whole community into peace that night. As I was tucking Emma into bed, she asked me something and broke my heart and mended it all in one, Mommy. She signed her little hands in delicate motion in the soft glow of her bedroom. Do you believe the mean lady can hear music in prison? I kissed her forehead. I don't know, sweetheart, but I hope one day she learns to listen. Emma thought this for a moment. I hope she does. She signed, everyone should be able to hear music. At that moment, I knew that we would be all right. My daughter, who had every reason to be bitter and angry, still clung to beliefs of beauty. Patricia had put her in a cage. But Emma's spirit was free, unfettered, flying on the sounds of the songs she played. As for me, I found strength I never knew I had. I now run a nonprofit that fights for the rights of children with disabilities in communities across the country. Emma, our young ambassador, showing the world different, is not less. Sometimes the darkest moments of our lives reveal our highest calling. Sometimes the cruelest people teach us our most important lessons about kindness. And sometimes when someone tries to cage your child's spirit, the strongest revenge is to let that spirit fly, to let it fly higher than ever before. That's what we did. That's what we continue doing. And that's the story I'll tell to Emma when she's a grown woman, not only of the terrible day when a neighbor locked her in a cage, but of the beautiful symphony which followed when a whole community learned to hear with their hearts.